So Newcastle 2, Manchester United 1. The first defeat of the Michael Carrick era. Completely deflating, that was, unfortunately. I'm Ed. This is No Question About That with Dominic today to talk about that. Sorry, Dom, you haven't been on a little while and we've got you on for a crap one. How you doing?
I was quite optimistic when that Casemiro goal went in and 10 men for 45 minutes plus, and it was all looking quite promising. And yeah, for my first appearance in a while, first appearance in a new house, so I'm sorry if I'm sounding a little bit echoey today. In a brand new house, so I haven't yet pod-proofed it yet, Ed, so we'll get there eventually.
We'll get there, don't worry. Yeah, people listening won't be able to tell the difference once the audio magic has happened. You're also sporting a tash.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, just got to try something different in your 30s, haven't you? You know, become a dad, getting a bit old and boring. I need a new USP. So
very good.
That's what I've gone for.
When I hit 30, I think I bought a motorbike and everyone was like, "Are you having a crisis, Ed?" I was like, "No, it's a mode of transportation." But yeah,
I'm not doing that. So yeah, the tash is the next best thing.
Very good. All right. Well, we're going to talk about United's defeat to Newcastle. I guess there's been a pattern here, hasn't there? The performances have been kind of slow and underwhelming since Fulham. We've been scoring through the brilliance of individuals, but and defensive security for the most part. It just really was just all over the place today, and I'm not sure what I can put my finger on it. I don't know whether you can. It just felt extremely listless. It's not like I can point to Carrick's tactics or his team selection or really even the substitutions, because I kind of understand why they all happened, most of them. But everyone seemed really flat and lifeless. Can't pick a player out who had a good performance, except for Bruno, who created 8 chances. Even Brian Mbeumo, just the eight, yeah. Even Brian Mbeumo had easily his worst performance of his time at United, and I couldn't really tell why.
I thought Cooney was good in flashes. I think the fact that he was willing to take Trippier on was actually making a difference at times, and I was semi-encouraged after the first half. I still thought it wasn't a fully polished performance, but it was a typical game away at St James's Park until the red card, and I thought we were dealing with it reasonably well. You know, we've got to consider the run that we've had away at Newcastle and how difficult we find it against their sort of hard-running midfield. And it's a midfield of Manu and Casemiro playing again for the second time in a few days against that midfield. So it kind of went the way I expected to in that way. But I think it's the spell after half-time, which is completely unforgivable. For 25 minutes, half an hour, just absolutely nothing. Just no control when it should have been easy to have control. No chance creation, and just allowing Newcastle to dictate terms with 10 men. That's what has left me depressed. I thought it was going to lead to a 1-1 draw, which wouldn't have been a disaster. And then obviously that goal happens at the end, and it's a very, very good goal. And it's also a very poor piece of defending by a player who I thought had left United about 3 years ago. So I don't know how many complaints we can really have with that. It's annoying that it's gifted Newcastle 2 more points than they deserved. Yeah. But we certainly didn't deserve 3. We probably deserved 1, I think, on the XG, take away the penalty, etc., etc. So it's bloody deflating, because you talk about that run of games as well. You know, there has been some fortune against Fulham, Palace, West Ham, fortune to grab a point, but in none of those games were we sort of as listless as we were today, like you say.
True.
Today felt like a low point under Carrick.
Yeah, and I don't want to be too hyperbolic about it. I'm not suddenly going to turn around and go, this is utter shit, it's all Carrick's fault, we're doomed to failure under him, he's just a PE teacher, not a real manager, all the nonsense you get online inevitably, and I haven't read any of it. But and I've no doubt my comments and your comments will be full of people blaming this player and that player. It can be extremely liberally floated around, I think, in terms of player performances, because none of them really performed except for Bruno and, as you say, parts Cunha, but really only in flashes. System-wise, Yeah, absolutely. I was expecting Newcastle to be really hot coming out of the blocks. They are I think they've only lost like 2 of their last 20 under lights at St James's, something like that. It is a place where it really gets up for it, especially those night matches. Yeah, I'd have had some pretty terrible results there over the years. Not universally, but some. And I was expecting them to come out really hot, and United defended really well, I thought, for the most part, during that first half hour when you expected an awful lot of pressure. Newcastle locked the ball, but they weren't creating loads of clear-cut chances, were they? And it's not like they create loads of clear-cut chances, full stop. And then there was, bits of action, right? The second yellow card, which I guess we have to talk about, because I don't see where you can not give a yellow card for that. He wasn't fouled. He kind of tripped himself up, and it's either a simulation or it's not. It's kind of, can you be half pregnant in that situation? It's hard to. Definitely wasn't a foul.
It's a yellow card. It's just a yellow card. And if he hadn't already had a yellow card,
there would
be no discussion about that. There'd be zero discussion about that.
And the first yellow card was a blatant pull on shirt, wasn't it? First yellow card.
Yeah, just one of those sort of pullbacks. Obvious yellow as well. Ali McCoist and Darren Fletcher were British TNT sports commentators on this, and they're sort of talking it into being a harsh decision. And to be honest, I thought the referee was really, really poor tonight, but I think that he did actually get the 2 biggest calls of the game in the penalty and the second yellow for Ramsey, both correct. So,
that's right.
Baffling to me, that.
No, it's odd. They were the same on Peacock in the States that I was listening to on and complaining about it, and I just don't understand the point in complaining about that one. I mean, given that before that, Dan Burn had 2 goes at elbowing Luke Shaw in the face, connected with both of them, which that would have been his second yellow card as well. And then we had Joe Linton, first yellow card for pulling a player back, which the referee was very consistent about. He was very keen to get the yellow card about, but he did yellow card everyone who pulled shirts, I think. And then the sarcastic clapping, which got Diogo Dalot sent off a little while ago. Apparently that was the rule until tonight. Well, it wasn't the rule until they invented it for Dalot, and then it wasn't the rule again after they de-invented it after Dalot got sent off. So, they could have been...
Did Shane Lacey get sent off for bouncing the ball down after the game?
He did, yeah. He did.
Is that not... I think it's worse to sarcastically clap the referee than just throw the ball down with a little bit more force than he should do.
And it wasn't like it was just once. He kept doing it, Joe Linton. He did it in this kind of exaggerated way as well. And Sandro Tonali pulled him back and said stop, and he kept on doing it. So anyway, just to say that I'm not sure Newcastle can have an awful lot of complaints about receiving 1 red card when it could have been more if you were going to be strict about the rules there. And the penalty, it's definitely a penalty. Bruno, he complained an awful lot about it, but he knows he's tripped. As soon as he sees that back, Gordon's just done him, basically, and it's a clash of knees. He should have pulled his leg out, basically, and
Yeah, it was stupid. We didn't deal well with Gordon at all tonight, actually. True. And that was... I was a little bit perplexed about the decision to start Mazraoui, and I think Mazraoui generally did okay tonight, especially on the ball. He always does okay on the ball. But I think maybe, and it's far from me to advocate for Diogo Dalot, but maybe his pace in that channel, just to help Yoro out a little bit, might have been a wise call. I mean, maybe they thought that Mazraoui would be more press resistant against Newcastle's high press, but the game didn't turn out that way, and it turned out the direct running of Gordon and Harvey Barnes was getting Newcastle into good areas a lot, especially when they had 10 men. They were always going to be direct anyway. And so that was a bit of an odd one, I think. It's just the way that we don't deal with players who run through the middle or run at us. It's a consistent problem. Has been since the Ten Hag days. It's just, why can't we stop it? Why can't we keep up with these players? I mean, the physicality is a major issue still. That hasn't gone away just because we've won a few games under Carrick. I think that sort of re-emphasised tonight by the legginess, the sort of stodginess and the inability to deal with, what we all know is a physically imposing team, Newcastle.
Yeah, Newcastle have done that to us quite a bit. They were dominant in midfield, probably even after the red card, to be honest. They went to a 4-3-2, I think, wanting to have that extra player in midfield with Bruno drifting into the half spaces. Casemiro, Mainu. Casemiro obviously scored the goal with his head. We're going to miss that an awful lot. He started to fade. I mean, that's why he was pulled off after an hour. Mainu was very quiet tonight. And
poor. He was poor, actually.
Yeah, he just couldn't get involved in the game at all. Did the simple things which he's been doing, but he didn't get anywhere near as many touches as he needed to or has been in some of the recent games. Probably his worst performance under Michael Carrick since he's come back into the team. And, I mean, I guess not a surprise that Carrick tried to make changes in there. Casemiro went off first, Mainu later. Still didn't manage to get any control even with a man up, really. And
that was in favour of the Agate sub. I think it did make sense. And Casemiro, I know he scored. He was really poor tonight. I thought he was really poor. He made some really rash decisions on the ball, just giving it away, flicking it to nobody.
He does that when he's tired.
Yeah, it's the worst of Casemiro. It was the worst of him, and we know what he can do. But it sort of highlights the problem of not having anyone else, literally having zero alternatives, or the alternative being Manu Agate. So I got the fact that you have to make a change on 60 minutes, get some legs into the team.
Yeah, clearly the issues we have with physicality and needing someone more dominant in midfield hasn't gone away. It's much sharper when Casemiro has not had a week off, basically. His sort of Indian summer, his revitalisation this season, because he's been really good, mostly, has definitely been helped by the fact that he's not playing 90 minutes twice a week. Or 3 times when we're back in the Champions League, it's going to be an awful lot of games. And his worst performances definitely come when he has to play 2 in the space of days. I don't know whether that's true of Mainu as well, or all of them. Maybe they're just not conditioned in the same way because they're playing so few games. I really can't put my finger on exactly why they were quite so listless tonight. I mean, of course, it bears the sort of hallmarks of that Everton game under Amorim, doesn't it, when they were down to 10 and there was just nothing happening. At least in this one, we did create chances. And that was through Bruno, who was just picking players out all of the time. You know, Yoro should have scored, really, shouldn't he? With that header. Should or could.
Big chance. It was a big chance, yeah.
It's a big chance, yeah. And, yeah, it's just so disappointing because you're like, with Liverpool having lost 6 points ahead of them, just stamping authority on it, to be almost guaranteed a place in the Champions League. And as it is, I think we're still in a great position to qualify for the Champions League. I mean, Chelsea obviously had a thumping win tonight against Villa. Doesn't help us. And we have to play Chelsea again. We also play Villa again, don't we? And so these are going to be like tighter, more squeaky bum time games than perhaps they could have been if we'd got that win tonight. Like, not that you expect to go to Newcastle, even though they've been pretty poor this season and win. You know, it's not like we go out to St James's Park and win every year, is it? It's generally speaking a tough place. And just, I don't know, you try and find some analysis of that and maybe they just all had an off night. Yeah,
so we need to consider then how many midfielders we need in the summer, because it's so blatantly obvious that this squad can't play more than one game in a week. It's fortunate that we haven't had to, really, because it could have stretched us more in the league, and the league form could have dipped as a result. You know, everyone wants cup runs, and it's a really quite boring and annoying that we don't have any cup games at all, but it suited this squad and it's sort of played into their hands maybe and allowed us to push for the Champions League in the way that we are doing, and we're still third after losing that game.
Yeah,
thanks to results around us. So it's not, this isn't a disaster of a night. It's definitely a point dropped compared to what the performance deserved. But yeah, that midfield revamp, it needs to get serious, because like Casemiro and Ugarte going, Mainu, yeah, I still see him as a big part of the future, and yeah, his talent is absolutely obvious. But there is an issue, I think, in terms of, I'm not sure whether it's mobility or stamina or just playing as many games as we're asking him to now when he hadn't done it earlier in the season. Maybe he just needs to get up to speed with playing 90 minutes more often. Something needs to change anyway, and it needs to be maybe 3 midfielders now, and we're not going to be able to afford 3 Elliot Andersons or even 3 Carlos Balebas. It's going to have to be sort of a structured rebuild with players brought in to cover different positions and people brought in to add maybe just depth or bench strength rather than automatic starters. So it's a huge thing now that the club have to do.
Well, 2 points there. One on Manu, I'm not that worried. I think he's 21 years old. He's allowed to have a bad night. People are so hyperbolic about him. I just I have to ignore most of the social media nonsense. When Amorim was trying to convince everyone that Manu was a pile of shit and couldn't play football, I blocked hundreds of people just because I have no interest in talking to United fans who are totally bipolar about our players. And he didn't have a good night tonight, but I think he's been pretty good in the 7 games previously under Carrick. He adds a range and a profile to the United midfield that we do need, right? I think you want a physical destroyer and you want a connector and you want Bruno the creator. That's the right kind of balance. And you put those together and you have potentially a top-class midfield. That said, I think Manu really does benefit from having a physical player alongside him who eats up ground and does the destroying. You can't connect if you're always in a double pivot. And that will be the kind of play that United have to look for. They, of course, are interested in Elliot Anderson. I think he's been top of the list at United for some time, top of everyone else's list as well. He scored a brilliant goal tonight against Manchester City, just to, remind everyone what he can do. I was looking for a piece on my newsletter. I was looking at all the data. I mean, he's just a complete midfielder.
Yeah.
And 23 years old, perfect age profile. The problem is that it's going to be an 80 to 100 million pound problem if there's a bidding war for him. But more widely, I think you're right in saying that it's 3 midfielders United need. They need 4, right? If you're going to play 2 with Bruno ahead, you need 4 in the Champions League. And Ugarte will be sold, presumably. Casemiro's going, so that's 2 you need to replace. And I would suggest that the profiles are 2 really high quality ones and 1 squad. And in that piece I put a bunch of options, but then you have the question about fullback, because there is a question about both sides of the fullback. The quality, Diogo Dalot's quality, Mazraoui's dynamic physical profile, Luke Shaw's ability to get up and down, and then what do we want to do with Patrick Dorgu? And we know what they wanted, a left-sided forward as well, because they tried to make a bid for Semenyo in the winter. Carrick was asked about it loads and loads of times in the press conference before this one. So that's just 5 players we named there, maybe 6. If we're in the Champions League, the budget could stretch to 250 if they sell Mount, Xerxes, Højlund, and Rashford and Ugarte. Right, that's 5 players you get fees for. Obviously, you'd take Casemiro's wages off the books and Ugarte's wages. Mount's got massive wages, so you won't get a big fee for him. And Xerxes not on big wages, but you might get a fee. That gives you a pool of money with which to do this rebuild, but it's really, really tough, and you don't really have any room for mistakes.
Yeah, and I just wouldn't. Maybe this is just me, but I wouldn't be selling both Mount and Xerxes. I would be keeping one of them as a squad player, and maybe Xerxes is the option because he's a point of difference. I actually thought he was really good when he came on tonight.
He was good when he came on, yeah.
Really tidy, found some lovely channels, had a fantastic shot, which brought a brilliant save with Ramsdale, which could have won the game, and just his sort of link-up play when the game gets stretched. We saw it. I've seen it a couple of games this season, and my mind's going blank about when Palace away was definitely one, when he scored that goal. Just the way he sort of plays at a different pace to everybody else, and sort of, he also almost plays a different sport sometimes. Not necessarily in a good way, but just the way he wants to play is sort of off kilter, and I think that can actually make a difference off the bench. It's whether he wants to stay and do that job when he probably could go and be the star for a Serie A team, probably one of the best Serie A teams. He could be the main man up top or in the 10. So that's up to him maybe. Mount, I really don't know what to think about Mount because he isn't filling one of those two spots in the 4-2-3-1. He isn't one of the two. And Bruno is just always going to play as long as he's at the club. And Cunha is the second choice 10 now. So I don't know where that leaves Mason Mount if he can ever get him fit. I think he probably would have made a difference tonight, mind you, Ed. Probably would have been his kind of game because he can run and cover ground, and a lot of our players didn't look like they could do that tonight.
Yeah.
So that's some balance, isn't it?
I like the theory of Mason Mount. It's just the reality is a very different thing. I like the theory of Josh Zirkzee as well. Like, as you say, he is a very different kind of player. He's playing classical music when so much of the Premier League is metal, isn't it? And it's just because of that, he often doesn't feel like he fits, and you just don't know where he kind of fits systemically. He's definitely not a striker, is he? So is he at number 10?
He polarizes opinion. Nobody can make their mind up on him. I sort of divert, wildly go from one opinion to the other on him just based on a performance. But that's what he's sort of like. He's that frustrating player, and United need consistency, and they need options because I'm so worried that the club do the thing that they always do in the summer, which is go after one target quite slowly, then another target quite slowly, and you end up with 3 players or 4 players like you do every single summer. And that's not going to be enough if we're going to be able to handle games like this in midweek and change the team up enough to keep it fresh. I mean, look at the top teams now; they can change 4, 5, 6 players and still put out a world-class elite 11. Arsenal have done it all season. He might win the title. United, Carrick's put out basically the same team in every game, bar 1 or 2. And I think tonight was the night when that finally came back to bite.
Yeah, I think that's all fair. I mean, you're right about the number of. I think and I don't think that's 5 players. Let's go for the title next season. Necessarily, it's 5 very identifiable problems that you're trying to fix, and they've been willing to chase, Premier League proven high value targets from smaller clubs. That worked really well last season with Cunha and Mbeumo last summer. And to do deals for surprising players like Dorgu and Sana Lamons. And I do have more of a confidence in, we got our new data department, which they've spent a lot of money on, or they brought in new people, and it's partly about transfers, it's partly about performance. And we've got Christopher Vivell leading recruitment. And it does seem to be they're having a better hit rate. Now, it was hard to say with the Manuel Ugarte one, whose fault that really was, whether they were sold a dream by the agents or it was Jason Wilcox or who, because they weren't all through the door. Dan Ashworth wasn't properly through the door at that point, was he? So that hasn't worked out. Dorgu we think is going to work out, although for most of the time we weren't quite sure.
That's only based on the last few weeks before he got injured, really.
Exactly. And some sense that there was some improvement there, I guess, this season.
What's gone wrong with Ugarte? Because I remember sitting in a similar position talking to you after we drew at Anfield last season.
And he was really good.
And he was everywhere. And it was
him and Mainu were excellent.
It was the best of him as a part of a double pivot. And I was saying that he's not a true 6 and he's not a true 8. He's somewhere in between. He cuts the play up. He gets around. His distribution is so poor though. And I don't know, he just seems to really lose. He seems to lose his head quicker than anyone loses their head. And the rash mistake, it's very akin to Dallo actually. Some of the things that he does, where he'll do a good thing, you win the ball, and then the next thing is going to be a mistake. You can't deal with that second wave of pressure that comes on him. But to sort of see the player that was so rated by a lot of top European clubs, he just hasn't made any sort of impact. And you'd think the Premier League would kind of suit his style as well, but it's just been really lacking from him for a long time.
He's not an all-round enough player to make it in the Premier League. I wonder whether he'd look very different. If you say João Gomez was excellent against Liverpool last night for Wolves, and if Ugarte was in the Wolves side, he'd probably look excellent as well. When he has to do things that fit his profile and his skill set, he does them really well. He gets around, he harries players, he fouls, he tackles. He's really, really high on the number of defensive actions, like in the data. The problem is at United, you have to do two other things which he can't do. One is distribution, but it's also the number 6 is supposed to take the ball off the centre-backs and help you build through the thirds. And as soon as Ugarte came on, what they did was sit Mainu at 6 for the however many minutes he was on, another 15 minutes or so, and push Ugarte to do the counter-pressing, which you kind of understand, right? Because you can't give Ugarte the ball off Harry Maguire at the back and say, okay, now you play it through the middle, because it's not going to happen. And
it shows a bit of a lack of trust in Ugarte, I think.
Absolutely
not willing to
it
give
does.
him that role.
Yeah, absolutely. So you throw him up there to a bit further forward, not to try and create anything or link play at all, but just to try and destroy it higher up the pitch, which is high risk, high reward, of course, that kind of strategy. So I think that's the problem. He's just joined the wrong club. It's kind of why I was, there were links with João Gomez in the winter. He'll probably leave Wolves. I like him as a player, but I do wonder whether he has a very similar kind of profile. Obviously, the sporting connection as well. And I also, you look at what Enrique did. He joined Paris Saint-Germain. He takes one look at Manuel Ugarte, goes, no thanks. Use the money to spend on João Neves.
They've got two absolutely silky ball players in their midfield. Ugarte couldn't really lace the boots off, could he really?
No, that's right. And coming back to the midfield balance question, that's a question for next season. Hugely, isn't it? Not just the number of players and the quality of the players we want, but also what do we want to be? Because we're kind of set up to be a great counter-attacking side still, aren't we? With Mbeumo and Cunha and Sesko burning pace, and Bruno and Casemiro both playing high-risk balls all the time. Do we want to become something more possession-oriented? Is that the plan? And who's that the plan for? Is it for Carrick? Is it for Nagelsmann? Is it for someone else who we don't know yet? And that midfield's going to dictate that massively.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of divide among the fan base when it comes to what kind of team we want United to be. And I think I've always been drawn more towards that with the possession style, because I think that the best teams have more of the ball. The best teams can break down smaller teams and put them away. City have done it for a decade under Pep. I don't want us to be exactly like City or exactly like a Pep team, but I'd like United to be able to just dominate in those tight spaces. And there's been a little bit of that, I think, in recent games under Carrick. I think some of the attacking play has been really nice, but there hasn't been a sort of a sustained attacks and sustained ability to break defensive teams down. And that's what we saw tonight in the latter stages especially. And before those latter stages, actually, when Newcastle were coming forward, we couldn't even get the control to pin them back. We couldn't even do that bit. We were still sort of playing Hail Marys. Bruno was looking for Mbeumo on the switch, and we were playing it quite long a lot of the time, which I was baffled by. Lomman's playing long balls to Sesko when you're playing against 10 men.
Yeah.
But we have mixed our style up a lot, since Solly, I guess, certainly since Ten Hag. There's been no desire for us to be a control team. And I do think that trips you up a lot of the time, as much as the United tradition. And Wayne will probably be on here saying, the United tradition is fast wingers and crossing and counter-attacking. Yeah, that's all well and good, and that's part of the game. You'll get opportunities to do that. But an elite modern team, it's like, get a guy who can do both. You've got to be able to play it short, to tap it around. Look at Arsenal now, look at City now. They are a lot more versatile in what they can do. Yeah. They're good on the transition and they're good at holding the ball.
Yeah, I think that's very true. I mean, City have become more vertical as the whole league has. It's always a response to the previous dominant tactical thinking, isn't it? This is just evolution. I always do find it funny. There's a bunch of tacticos who basically give the impression that football has fundamentally changed. It'll never be the same again. Well, no, it just constantly evolves, and the current penchant for highly physical set-piece dominant sides will produce a bunch of thinking to counter that. And Arsenal, the likely title winners this season, are very dominant, right? In most of the metrics, if you look at them. To the eye, they're horrible to watch. I mean, they're just not an entertaining side at all. But they are dominant in most of those metrics. Now, what they use to produce that dominance is not beautiful 25-pass sequences that finish with a flourish or even a City-style tap-in or anything like that. They use that dominance to get the ball into wide areas and force free kicks and corners because they know how they have a real advantage there because they've been working on this for longer than everyone else and they are quite prepared to use as many of the dark arts as possible, and referees don't call them out on it, or anyone else for that matter, right? But they still have dominance, and United have dominated so few games this season, and it's to do with the types and the profiles of players we've got, right? And so you just have to, like, if two of your three midfielders, or two midfielders under Amorim, are players that very, very much want to get the ball forward vertically, and that's their skill set in Casemiro and Bruno, of course you'd want to take advantage of that. And if you have some really quick, attractive players on the break like Cunha and Mbeumo, of course you want to take advantage of that as well. So I guess it's a question. It's all this has come from, like the fact that Casemiro is knackered and Mainu had a bad game and Ugate's utter shite, right? This debate comes from there, and I presume, and I have some relative... I'd say relative to the last previous 10 years of United's transfer market activity, that will get this one right. I hope so. It's just that everyone might be chasing the same players.
Yeah, I think that, but I think there is an element as well where it is coaching, and you can change players. Imagine if Bruno had been playing in the Pep for the last 5 years. What would he be like? Would he be playing those sort of 5% balls into the channels? Would he those outside of the foot crosses? Where there's one tonight where Ali McCoy said on commentary, Sesko could have got a leg across and got a contact on that. I thought, no, he couldn't. It was a really hopeful, speculative ball from Bruno, and we accept it because sometimes it produces a goal. Maybe once a game it produces a goal. Even looking at his recent assist stats, it's brilliant when it comes off. But sometimes it's a very low percentage option, and it concedes possession. And tonight, I just thought that's exactly what Newcastle wanted us to do, and that's what we did. We got involved in the slugfest, which is what they wanted. We let Joe Linton run all over us and bully and elbow and push and win cheap little shit fouls off the ref all game. There was no poise and composure, and that's what I want to see sort of the long-term development of this United team be. Many people disagree with that. I'd be interested to actually hear readers, listeners and people in the comments what they want United to look like. Forget who the manager's going to be.
Yeah.
It's coachable. Whatever you want is coachable from top players. I think people forget that. People sort of think, oh, these are the players, this is the only way they can play. These are guys who've been professionals for 15 years, some of them, who've been in top clubs and top academies. I'm sure they can cope with slight tweaks and tactical instructions and stuff like that. I mean, look at the way, go back to the way Pep and Klopp and people like that coach their methods. It was, this is my way and you fit into that.
Yeah, I think that's fair. On Bruno, it's just a risk-reward balance. He's both brilliant at the risky pass because he just produces so many chances. It's not luck, right? It's not just a hopeful punt or whatever. It's his quality. Would he have played under Pep? Well, Kevin De Bruyne did, and he had a sub 80% pass completion rate because he also similarly took on high risk reward, and Pep accepted that because the other 10 players were all about control.
That's the difference.
That is the difference, right? And so would you... I mean, there's 2 times Bruno's been shifted, like 2 obvious times, because the coach didn't like that risk-reward balance. One, most recently under Amorim, pulled him back into midfield. He was still managing to create chances and get assists, even though he did adapt his game to play in central midfield. And the other was Ralf Rangnick, who took one look at him and said, no, I'm going to stick you on the left wing. Didn't last very long, that experiment. Because when you've got a player of that nature who's likely to win you many, many, many more games than you lose under him, then you of course, that's worth it. It's just you make sure your squad composition allows you to do the things you really want, right? With the best players you've got. Now, if you could tell me that United would create as many chances and score as many goals with a different composition that didn't include Bruno, I'd love to hear the answer. You being the internet, not you, Dominic.
No, and I'm not for 1 minute saying that Bruno is rubbish or we should sell
No,
Bruno.
I know you're
like
not.
That.
I know you're not, but there will be people in the comments who are, right? They will also be the people who would be complaining if we didn't create any chances. All right? You literally cannot have it both ways. Now, if they, the internet, the world, the few people left on the planet who are Bruno haters, mostly who, watch a certain YouTube channel, if there's another answer, great. I mean, of course there are ways to win football matches that don't include Bruno Fernandes. Of course there are. But it might involve buying 3 new £100 million midfielders, right, in order to get the balance right. I don't think United are going to do that. I think they'll probably look at this balance of this squad and go, yeah, Bruno's going to stay. We hope he's going to stay. They probably will if we're in the Champions League. Give it one more go. What is the composition of the players we've currently got? Well, the only other one that's going to be here next season is Mainu and some youngsters who probably aren't quite ready. What do the 2 or 3 other central midfielders we need look like in order to get the best out of all these players, and get the squad composition right? Because it's obviously been Frankenstein for so long.
Yeah, it's also about, for me, it's about people like Ahmad, Mainu and Sesko improving as you expect them to. Because looking at their ages and the sort of the progression that they could go on in the next few years, there's huge potential in those 3 in key positions as well. And Ahmad should be the kind of right winger who really complements Bruno because he does give you control. He's got a brilliant touch and very, very rarely gives it away. He's very, very press resistant. True. I think we have actually missed him when he hasn't started the last couple of games. I know he went quiet against West Ham and another game which is escaping me now. He went a little bit quiet and people said we should swap him out and start Mbeumo on the right and Sesko up top. That was probably the right call, but there's still something in Ahmad that brings us an element of play that I don't think anyone else in that attacking 4 does. And Mainu's the same in midfield. Like you say, you just need the right player next to him. Casemiro is the best choice at the moment, but obviously we know he's going and we need a different profile than Casemiro in the future. Those 3 with Sesko as well and the improvement that he's showing, that's just vital. And whoever the coach is next season, Carrick or somebody else, you have to improve them. You have to get them to where they need to be. Because if you don't, there's another rebuild coming after that in 2 years, and there's more players that need to be signed. Look at the way that we had to get rid of Højlund and Garnacho because they were vastly underperforming. Look at the way we had to give up on Rashford, even though a couple of years previously he'd been at that level. There's all these sort of near misses in United's recent history with talented players. So that is another worry of mine that we just never get. There's that existential crisis that we may never get this right, Ed. But I do hold hope for those 3 in particular.
Yeah. You're right about the development of players. I mean, Ahmad, we just want more output, right? Because he's a brilliant footballer. I love him. He just needs to...
Lovely player.
I want him getting into double figures for goals and double figures for assists every season. And same with Mainu. He needs to be a better progressive passer and needs to be on the ball more, right? It's just true. If he wants to be a fully fledged... And he's 21, right? So he can do this. Especially the positioning to get the ball more. I think that can be done through coaching and learning. Luka Modric, who I've mentioned on this pod so many times as the kind of profile of player that Mainu should be. Not saying he's as good. He's clearly not. He was playing in Croatia at age 21, right? He wasn't anywhere near a Real Madrid team winning 5 Champions Leagues. So there's time. But you're right, yes, they all need to grow and develop, and hiring and firing a manager every year it doesn't appear to be the best path towards that. Years and years ago, I was on, I think it's BBC Radio Manchester. They used to call me up fairly often. I'd go on and be a pundit after the games and stuff like that. And, you remember the wireless, Dominic,
I've been on it every now and then.
Yeah. When people used to use that as post-match content and not the watch-alongs, and so the blog at the time was called United Rant, and I think if Steve Wyeth might have been the producer on that. Anyway, I was asked, like, why is it called Rant? What have you got to rant about? And this is when United were brilliant and stuff like that. And I was like, pretty much any time Nani gets the ball, that's what I want to rant about. But he would, and I brought that up because look at his record. He got double figures for goals and assists so often. I think one season he got like 17 goals and 15 assists. Absolutely elite numbers, and we're like, well, God, he's not much good, is he?
Standards used to be so high, Edward.
We would kill for a player who could do that, who wasn't named Bruno Fernandes, and it's... So, yes, absolutely. I think there's another level Ahmad can go to and has to go to if he wants to be in a title-winning United side. Obviously, we're not a title-winning United side right now. And same with Mainu. I'd like 2 top-class central midfielders and a third that was cheaper to push Mainu. And if it turns out, even though, I'm a big booster and a big believer in his quality, if it turns out they're better than Mainu, then he won't play. And, that's fair dues at that point, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's a bit of that sort of, you adjust your standards based on what you've recently seen. You talk about United in the old days and how we were spoiled. But that's even happened recently. And I've not looked really at social media after this game. I've had a few messages from Liverpool sporting friends laughing at United losing. I mean, look a bit closer to home, lads, maybe first, losing to Wolves. But the standards from a really, really good unbeaten run, we hadn't lost in the league since 4 days before Christmas, and that was that Villa game, which we were pretty unlucky to lose, by the way. It was a similar story tonight, I think. A great goal from someone cutting inside. The Asula, goal, sort of a mirror image of Rodgers, I think.
Yes.
But people immediately think, United should be carrying on this run, should be pushing for the title. Carrick was even asked about it. Can you push for the title? He said something non-committal, and it was spun into a headline of Michael Carrick refuses to rule out title push. I mean, we came 15th last season. We were shit, like properly shit. Look at where Spurs are now. They're still down there.
I know.
It's baby steps, lads. We've done pretty well under Carrick. I've enjoyed watching us play. The attacking football is a mile better than it was. The new signings have all done well. We've lost in the last minute to a really good goal. It's really annoying, but context is always key, Ed.
Yeah. I totally agree. I'm not freaking out over this. The internet will do, of course, but that's all right. It's disappointing. It's been, the performances haven't been all great under Carrick. I mean, the 2 best ones were City and Arsenal, and they had very specific plans to win those games, and it came off perfectly. All of the others you can kind of pick holes in, I think, and this was the worst of the lot. It was just so listless. We got 10 days, 11 days off, I think it is now, until the next game. Some ridiculous number of days off anyway. Sucks so much because now we have to think about it for the next however many days.
Just worry about Villa at home for the next however long.
Yeah, well, Villa are falling off a cliff at the moment, so maybe we shouldn't worry about it. Or maybe we should. I don't know. So,
there's 2 ways of looking at everything.
I know. But just imagine, the positive spin is we will have money, right? This is what all the pain. And for all I disagree with, Ratcliffe and him personally and what he said about immigrants and his politics, and, I know, there's lots of United fans don't disagree with this, fine. Everyone's got their opinions, and it's a very broad church and all of that kind of stuff. But for all I personally don't like about this man, the strategy of trying to reorganize the club in order to provide more finances is basically working. So United should have quite a pool of money in the summer. Now, if we fall off a cliff after this and don't make the Champions League, that will not be true. But if we do, just imagine a world in which we bring in, I'm just going to name some names just for the sake of it,
No,
Elliot Anderson and Sandro Tonali and João Gomez as your 3 midfield, 2 starters and one. Or what? Pick 3 names that are your personal favourites. Don't hand me those. But Labour and Anderson and Water, whoever you love most. Imagine you do that.
Bowling out under Carrick. That's what I'm after.
Yeah, there you go. there are some hipsters out there. He's having another good season, yeah. Whatever the 3 is, imagine United get this right in the way they got last summer right.
That's the thing.
That would be utterly transformational, and I bet you then we end the season inside of 10 points of the title winners. I don't think that would be enough to quite win the title. Maybe it would, I don't know. But yeah, if we're 5 or 6 points off the title winners next season, because we've got the summer recruitment right, I think that's the kind of progression we want.
I just feel sick with worry that we won't make the Champions League. I just had a look at the fixtures that were coming up, and there are sort of those in-betweeny fixtures, Villa at home, Bournemouth away, even Leeds at home feels like when you could lose points on. Finishing with Brighton away that's just horrible, just makes my skin crawl. But let's look more on the bright side. You painted a nice picture of where the club's at in the bigger picture, which, all it needs is us to be better than one of Villa, Chelsea and Liverpool. And the way Villa are tanking, it could be on still.
All right, we barely talked about the game. That's because it was shit. Oh well, it is disappointing, and we've got so long to stew about it as well. That's the sickening thing. You just want a game at the weekend, don't you? So you can fix it. But Casemiro will get a massage and relax his legs, and he'll come back fresh. And Kobe Mainoo can go look at the video and go, "Why were you rubbish tonight?" And Brian Mbeumo, who had a world-class stinker tonight. Everything he touched went wrong. He can have a great player. What went wrong? And Benjamin Sesko barely touched the ball, so they can all go away and have a long, hard look at themselves and think about why they weren't any good.
9 days, 11 days to stew. Let's do it. I can't wait.
Very good. Thank you, listeners, viewers, wherever you are. You can catch Dominic around about. Probably some stuff on your
19
Substack.
On Blue Sky and Twitter. Yeah. I've not done my Substack for a while. I usually do it to rant after we've lost, so you might get one soon.
Very good. Yep. And patreon.com/NQATpod. There you go. I'm so despondent with the game I couldn't even remember our own web address for the extra show. Adam and I talked about some of those midfield options for this week's. I did something similar on my newsletter as well, just to complement it with a bit of data. And we'll see you at some point during the midweek. Thanks a lot. Bye now.